Maldives, an archipelago in the Indian Ocean. The Maldives has 1,192 islands, 192 of them being inhabited, and most of them resorts, due to the beautiful coral reefs and white sand beaches. Tourists obtain the ability to get through a lot of food, water and energy, and can produce a lot of rubbish. Some resorts around in the Maldives find this prospect daunting of having to get rid of the rubbish sustainably and having to deal with their needs at the same time. It's easy for resorts to simply take rubbish on a boat and send it away, but although this seems quick and easy for the resorts, it really isn't good, and it can increase the carbon footprint and green gases that are let out into the world. I'm now on my way to meet Gordon, the head of fungi development at the Eco Centre in Soneva Fushi. I hope that he can answer some of my questions that I really want to know about the sustainability on this island. The food waste that I produced is either passed or thrown away. Mm-hmm. Where does it go?
Good question. We have altogether on average about 700 kilos of food waste that's collected from the different kitchens. And what we do is we collect it all together every evening, and each morning it comes down here and is put into these huge piles. It's mixed with mulch, which is chopped up trimmings from the jungle, and together that mixture under these tarpaulins with some air running underneath them is the perfect mix for composting, and that's what we do. We compost all of our food waste from the kitchen.
Sure. So when it turns into compost, does this go to the gardens or?
Exactly, yeah, it's perfect. And with these sandy soils that we have here in the Maldives, it's really difficult to grow any variety of vegetables, but with a good compost we can start to turn that sandy soil into something nutritious and beneficial for a lot of vegetables. So this is the only fertilizer, the only ingredients or nutrients that we offer in the gardens. It's all organic, obviously, it's homemade, and that's where it goes. We're producing compost now on such a scale that it's more than we can use, so we're starting to look at how we could market that and even sell it to other resorts.
Great, thank you. All customers inevitably need energy for fundamental things such as lights or air cons. Mm-hmm. Where does this energy come from?
Well, the nature of the Maldives, everybody living on their own small island, every island actually has to generate their own electricity. And here we have a series of generators, large diesel generators, and almost every island in the Maldives will have a generator house, and they'll be producing their own electricity. Here at Soneva Fushi we try also to use as much renewable energy as we can, and here with these solar panels, which were installed in 2009, we're generating about 3% of our energy needs just from the sun. It's our goal to increase this considerably over hopefully the next 12 months with about 5 or 6 times this area of solar panels installed, as well as trying to tackle the way we use energy, because of course if we can use less, then we don't need to use as much diesel for the generators, or we don't need as many solar panels. So we're always trying to use less energy in the first place, and also to produce green energy like solar. It always feels low whenever I tell people, and it's a shame. I mean, I'm told that we can produce about 6 times more energy per area in the tropics here than we can back in the UK. Yeah. So we're off to a head start already, but as a result we just use a lot of energy. And if you were to transplant the same area of panels to a local island, you'd cover far more than 3%. So it's really the fact that we have a lot of air conditioners. The kitchens use a lot of energy as well, and we're quite an old resort too. That's another factor, that some of the equipment we've got here might be 15 years old. It's not as efficient as modern equipment, so we're running a program to always upgrade. All new air conditioners are much more efficient than the old ones. New fridges, freezers, that kind of thing. As a result, we've always tried to do both, sustainable luxury, I think it's a goal worth aiming for. I think there are ways in which we can continue that idea of intelligent luxury further by using more, for example, natural cooling. So we're starting to think about how we can use sea breezes and just simple fans as an alternative to air conditioning. So you get the same benefit of feeling cool, but you feel closer to nature, and you in the end use less energy. So hoping to continue on that road of we don't want to make people feel guilty for turning the aircon on. I mean, that's not the point. It's about utilising green energy where we can and not wasting it. I'm an engineer by training, but I have done quite a few different things since then, predominantly working with small, innovative companies, both in the UK and now here. And that's one of the great appeals for Soneva. Innovation is at the heart of what we do. So it's an opportunity to continually try new things. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And as an engineer with a broad interest in lots of areas, including recycling, renewable energy, actually mushrooms as well, it suits me very well. So there's a real potential, not just for us here, but a local entrepreneur could, with the spawn that we'll be producing here, start their own business potentially to serve other resorts. That'd be great if something like that came out of it. Yeah.
Oh. I know Soneva bottle their own water and use inlets for the intake of water, but does the water go round in a cycle?
It does, yes. As you say, it starts in the lagoon or out in the deep ocean, and we draw salty water into our desalination plant. That's where it starts, and we pull through the process of reverse osmosis. We pull some of that salt or all of the salt out of some of the water, and we send back saltier water, brine, back into the sea. But what we get is some water which is now without the salt. That then gets further processed and cleaned, and finally comes here to the bottling plant where it's prepared for guests and hosts alike to drink.
Wow! And so once the water's does it go back into the sea?
Right, okay, so on the sewage side, yes, all toilet, bath water, everything else goes through a sewage treatment plant, so it's cleaned up again, and then finally when it's acceptable level of cleanliness, then that's piped back out into the deep ocean. So indeed it does go all the way around.
Why not just keep that clean water and then reuse it as new water again, rather than taking others from the sea?
Good question. Yeah, we can do that. It would require a lot more filtering, and so at the moment, rather than have all those extra stages of filtering and cleaning, we'll start again with cleaner water. But you're right. That's a good point. What we could do in the short term is clean the water to the level where we can put it on the gardens. And so we could reuse it in that way, and that's something we're looking at doing. So rainwater harvesting,
yes.
So just catching the rainwater, but also using the wastewater from the sewage treatment plant as well.
Thank you. What's the cost in producing one bottle of water?
I don't actually have the number to hand and what the cost is all the way through the chain, but I can tell you what we do with the money that we get from selling it.
Yes.
About half of that is put back towards the operational cost. So paying back the investment on the bottling plant and the desalination and so on. And half of it, 50%, we commit to charitable activities, trying to provide water for the developing world. So we've got a foundation, Slow Life Foundation, that's involved in water projects in Africa and other places where we can help increase the amount of availability of fresh water. So there's a strong charitable element to it as well. The other thing with this bottling is that actually not all resorts do this, but we do encourage more and more to do it because the environmental impact is so beneficial. Not needing any plastic bottles here. We don't have any of that recycling to worry about. All the transporting water around is very environmentally damaging and expensive, so we save a lot on that. So the payback is relatively fast, and that's what we tell other resorts, and more now are doing what we do here.
And I also heard about the bottles that I think, is it when they're smashed, they get remade into something different, like flooring or cement.
That's right. So glass, whether it be these bottles, which generally don't break, and we reuse these, but for example wine and beer bottles, or jars that might have had tomatoes or gherkins in from the kitchen, they all come to the eco centre, where they are broken down into fine powder. Looks like sand, and we use it like sand in cement. And so that doesn't have to leave the island, but we can use it for something useful.
Thank you. Thank you, Gordon. Please tell me about your mushrooms.
Right, well, Soneva Fushi have been growing mushrooms here for about 6 years, and we have been bringing all the materials required, including the mushroom grower himself, from Sri Lanka, where they grow two varieties particularly, white oyster mushroom and or American oyster and abalone, and those are the two varieties that we've been growing here. Now, in keeping with our goals to provide wonderful experiences for guests, but also to keep things as local as possible, we spent the last year transitioning to local materials as much as possible. So rather than import sawdust and other things that we need for growing mushrooms, we're trying to make that all here. We've got a lot of wood here.
Yes.
So that's one of the things we've been doing.
I saw you were making sawdust with the coconuts up in the eco centre as well.
That's right. Yeah, and some mushrooms will grow on that cocoa peat. So not the ones that we're growing at the moment, but it's definitely something we could use with other varieties of mushroom. So that's one thing, is localizing the materials. The other is to stop relying on imported spawn, which is the seed for mushrooms. And for that, we've built a laboratory.
Wow.
So we're really close now to starting that up. It's all built, equipment's in place, and then we'll be able to not even need to import that, but produce our own spawn, and that will really improve the quality that we can produce here.
That's great, thank you. And I also wanted to ask you one more question. So let's say in 5 years, if I came back, what would you want me to see as in a difference? What would you hope for in 5 years?
Well, certainly from the mushroom side, I would like to see us producing, if not all, very nearly all of the mushrooms that the resort needs. Now, at the moment, we consume about 1,300 kilos a year.
Gosh.
Wow. So that's the target, and obviously a range of varieties as well. So we need to learn how to grow each different variety as best we can. There's some varieties that will never grow in such a warm place, but we might be able to find alternatives that would be acceptable to guests. So just for example, the typical button mushroom doesn't grow very well in warm climates, so we could find a tropical alternative. Would you like me to talk about the other aspects of
yes, please.
Environment?
Yeah.
Well, from the energy point of view, a lot more reliance on solar energy.
Yes.
We, as we mentioned earlier, have just 3% covered at the moment. But if we can improve the efficiency of our powerhouse and the efficiency of the equipment that we have here, and become better at saving energy, using less, and increase the amount of solar that we have here, then we should be able to use far less diesel and generate far more of our energy in a green way, an environmentally friendly way. So I'd hope you see big changes there.
Although when you're expanding these solar panels, you'll inevitably have to cut down the trees. Will you replant them in somewhere else just to balance? Or
what we hope is to use existing areas that wouldn't mind having a roof over them. So one example is our eco centre. We don't grow very much there. We're not reliant on the light. So we could actually just put a large roof over the whole area of solar panels. Another obvious place is the sports fields in the host area. So we've got a football pitch, we've got a volleyball pitch, and those areas could be covered with solar panels. We've got tennis court as well. That way we wouldn't have to cut down any trees, and those would be the first places we'd try.
Yes, thank you. Is there anything else you aspire to have in?
On the waste management side, we're always trying to separate more of our waste before it gets to the eco centre, so we don't end up sending mixed rubbish in black bin bags. Yes. And so we've actually got a trial that we're just about to start, where there'll be coloured bags all around the resort for us to separate out our waste. And we're already doing something behind the kitchen where it's being nicely separated, no black bags at all. But if we've do that across the whole resort, ultimately it would be great if we didn't have to send anything off the island. It was all recycled or reused. So the goal is really zero waste.
Thank you.
And you must come back again in 5 years' time and check that we've done what we said we would.
Thank you. I've learnt many things about sustainability on my holiday. What sticks in my mind is the importance of trying things, even if they fail or succeed. For example, the mushroom project was successful and innovative. It's also good to tell other islands about these successes,
because then they can become sustainable as well.